Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to talk to you about the program. So why are we co-presenting with Peacock? We are the child of Peacock, if you like. So Peacock spent some time recruiting residential aged care around 2018, 2019, looking at facilities that would be interested in taking the Peacock program as it is and putting it into residential aged care and seeing what the fit would be like and if there were any gaps and what needed to be adjusted. I happened to be working in one of those residential aged care facilities that was piloted, and I knew about Peacock because I had worked with it in specialist PAL care. So it seemed like a very good opportunity to be participant in the pilot itself. What became very evident was that it was never going to be a perfect fit, and what became very clear was palliative care is core business in residential aged care. Although having that conversation and talking about palliative care is not something that everybody really realises. It's like having a conversation about dementia being a life-limiting illness. Not everyone sees it immediately. So the missing thing that was happening in residential aged care was, as soon as we recognised that people were dying, actively dying, we could do that end-of-life care very, very well. And it is done very well. When people come into residential aged care, they have life-limiting illnesses, it's very clear that the people need palliative supportive care. But there's a missing bit in the middle. What has happened with the aged care reforms is it's picking up on, with the quality indicators, picking up on weight loss, intractable weight loss, falls that are happening as an outcome of weight loss, muscle wastage, increased use of medications to manage symptoms. So the quality indicators have been picking up on this inexorable change that happens to people that is the prelude before they actually become end of life, which we describe as the palliative care trajectory that the person goes on. And we align ourselves with now ANAC because we're working within the aged care framework, and we identify that period as being about 3 months before someone dies. But that never is a straight line, and we've talked about how people can come very close to dying and then they bounce back. And that's that chronic illness model of care. So when we do our training with residential aged care facilities, we spend a lot of time talking about how we screen for palliative care, how we identify palliative and end-of-life care needs, and that we recognise that many of those people will recover to a point, stabilise, and go back into routine regular assessment. So I'll just show you some of our slides. This is a current available data, so it's 2021, that talks about residential aged care facilities. There's nearly 3,000 in Australia. There's nearly a 250,000 beds available. And we have about 65,000 deaths that occur in residential aged care. So it's a third of the population dying in residential aged care on an annual basis, on average. We have about 18% of the population who die within the first 3 months of being admitted into residential aged care. And in some spaces, that's even higher. It can be as much as 50%. So if you think about the recognition of palliative care needs, the capacity to care for people at that level, having them funded appropriately, these are all the complexities that residential aged care have to face. So with PACOP, one of the things that we really look at, and it's very similar in context to Peacock, we're looking at standardising language. We create a framework for people to use and processes that mean that even your newest RNs can follow this process and have the same assessments and outcomes of assessments as your senior staff do. So it's giving everybody a baseline to use, and it's picking up on general geriatric palliative care. It's also identifying when people need specialist PAL care so that we're not over-referring to specialist PAL care services. In some areas, there are no palliative care services. In some areas, there are good palliative care services, palliative care needs rounding. So it's very variable, and when we're working with residential aged care, it's important for us to know that. The other thing is that the validated tools that are used are helping change the conversation with our GPs, because now the staff are not taking anecdotal information to GPs, they're showing them validated assessments and trends that are happening to residents. Not working? Can you? Thank you. So the orange part of this is the original part that Peacock uses. And for us, it is when palliative care and end-of-life care has been identified, and we change the care pattern to a daily care monitoring of a resident. The part that was introduced for residential aged care is the profile collection, which develops a profile of the person that you're assessing. Every person is assessed. And the specificness of this profile collection is it's looking for palliative changes. So you have a 3-month cycle, ABC, big tool that also looks at end-of-life care planning, hospitalisation, so it looks at a lot of the risks around changes that are happening to people. There's a deteriorating resident tool, but it's not for acute deterioration, it's for palliative deterioration. Both of those tools have questions in them that guide staff to make a decision as to whether the person has palliative or end-of-life care needs, which would then transition them into the outcomes collection, which becomes a daily review of the resident. These are our tools, so we use the same tools as Peacock, but we have an extra one, which is the Rockwood Clinical Frailty Scale. This has made a very big difference in our ability to work with staff in picking up frailty, because frailty becomes very, very clearly an issue for older adults, particularly with chronic illnesses. And so we have 5 tools that we use in the profile collection. Rockwood is part of that. And then we use 4 of the same tools, but we change out to phase. And phase at the bottom there is about the clinical needs of the resident. And it has a process involved that helps the aged care staff to work out what needs to be escalated and how quickly it needs to be escalated. So we stop those Friday afternoon special things happening. This is our quality cycle process. So it's the same process that Peacock uses. We have a 6-monthly data collection. So I know that as nurses, our main interest is in clinical care of the resident. But in reality, we have a group of organisations that have to meet all the aged care reforms, have to evidence the changes that they have. I think aged care is probably the most over-regulated group of people in the whole of the country. And they are so driven by having to prove things the whole time, it's quite punitive. So what this process does is it helps to support residential aged care by collecting the information that they do collect, processing the data, and producing the dashboards. So Stacey spoke of their dashboards, we have them too. We have one for the profile collection, ABC. We have one for the deteriorating resident tool. We have one for outcomes, which is the palliative end-of-life care part of the program. And we have one that talks about the deaths that have happened with the residents in care and where the deaths happened. Were they on an end-of-life care pathway? Were they in outcomes? Were they in profile? And it helps us to audit what has happened with the residents in their illness trajectory. These reports can be used as part of the star ratings, which is another evidence-based process that happens in residential aged care. And it can sit under their compliance section for star ratings. So we have standardised education. I was actually here yesterday and did a whole day workshop with a whole lot of people, and I see some familiar faces, some people who were here yesterday too. We have a variety of suite of workshops, virtual as well as face-to-face. Improvement facilitators as myself, we have an ongoing relationship with the aged care homes. We don't just deliver the process and then walk away. We work with communities of practice, we build capacity, problem solve, educate, and keep the process going. We do have an LMS self-directed learning course that's going to be released in the second half of the year. And we have a fabulous PACOP YouTube channel, which has got lots of what we call clinical bites, which teach about the different tools. Now, I know that a lot of you know those tools, have seen those tools, and even have some of those tools already built into software programs if you're in residential aged care. The uniqueness of this program is that A, it has a sequence in which this is done, and B, it does data extraction and provides evidence around what you're doing from a palliative care perspective. So that's our program. QR code there too, if you would like to find out more about the program. And you're most welcome at any point in time to join any of our workshops to find out more about how we work. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bronwyn.